Have you ever been to the Museum of Archaeology? Well, if you haven't, the University of Ghana is privileged to have one. The Department of Archaeology and Heritage Studies is one of the oldest departments in the university. Our objective as a group is to explore Ghana's archives, that's its archaeological excavations. This includes fossils, beads, figurines, clay pots, and human skulls. To begin our journey, we had a chance to speak with Mr. Ajari, who walked us through the history of the archaeology department.
Alright, so my name is Gideon Ejari. I'm a technician, principal technician in the Department of Archaeology and Heritage Studies. And I'm also a museologist or a curator in the department. The Museum of Archaeology started way back from the then Achimota, college. So that was around 1923. And then during the expansion of the college, an anthropologist by name Destin Shaw, started collecting the materials, that were coming up during the construction. So he decided to keep all those excavated or the cultural remains in a small room, and then he named the place as a Museum of Anthropology. So until 1948, when the University of Ghana was built, and then the Department of Archaeology was also built. But the museum was actually opened in 1951. Right. The materials or the objects or the cultural remains that were recovered from the Achimota College during the expansion were transferred into the Museum of Archaeology. And so that materials or the objects formed the basis for the Museum of Archaeology. That was around 1951. And then in 1957, on the eve of independence, the National Museum, was established. But I have to note that the National Museum, the materials from the Museum of Archaeology were transferred from here to the National Museum. And so, in a way, we can say that the Museum of Archaeology gave birth to the National Museum. Right. And then until that time, researchers have been going around the country, collecting across the country and then outside the country. So we have a lot of collection, in fact, in the storage and on display. On display, when you enter Museum of Archaeology, we have the human evolution.
Next up is the human evolution. We get to hear about the skulls.
With finer bone morphology, very efficient bipedalism, we have increased brain capacity. We can do things better than the earlier species. We say that, we are more efficient, we can have thinking capacity, we have a social organization that is distinct among the earlier species. Bone are not as robust as it will be. It has evolved into a finer species, I would say. And so we say these are modern human species that can think of their own more efficiently, can make very fine tools for efficient hunting and survival and adaptation to the environment.
Waist beads, beaded bracelets, beaded necklaces. Do we know the history of these beads? Let's find out.
And then beads collections in the museum. And the beads, we have different types of beads in the Museum of Archaeology. So we have beads from the Teaching House around the 1930s. So those were the traded beads. And then we have the the locally made, beads from the Asante, the Daban people, and then the Krobo. We also have some natural beads as well in the Museum of Archaeology. Alright, so apart from wearing the beads, using the beads for body adornment and so on and so forth, the other thing I also want to add is that the beads, you can also use the bead as a musical instrument. It's a musical instrument, so what we call the maracas. Okay, you can also use the beads for. And so talking about beads, it plays a major role in our Ghanaian society or our Ghanaian culture. Sometimes it identifies you who you are. You go to a function and you see somebody, wearing a lot of beads on the wrist. It's telling you something. It tells you who that person is. Right. Good. So this is what we can say about the beads.
Did you know Ghanaians used to make their own irons? Check this out.
Talking about the iron from northern Ghana. So there's this notion that Africa had no knowledge in iron working, right? But archaeologists or archaeological excavations have revealed that way back before the Europeans, the Africans, and for that matter, Ghanaian or Ghana, people were producing iron way back before the European presence in Africa or in Ghana. Now, how did they do that? Our local people collect the local material, what we call the laterite. The laterite contains some amount of iron ore, and then this oil is put in a furnace, all right, and it is smelted at a very high temperature. So when it is done, they break the 2 years, and then they allow the melted magma, what we call the route, and that what comes out, you allow it to cool, and then you go ahead, you send it to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith would turn them into implements or iron implements. And so way back before the Europeans, Africans were producing iron. They were smelting iron using the indigenous technology, right? So some of the things, can't say on a record that the ideas were stolen from Ghanaians, because our people were doing these things before the iron rods and so on and so forth came into being. All right, good. So this is what I say about it.
Visiting the archaeology department was fun and very educative. We learned how artifacts are excavated, examined in the lab, before they finally reach the shelves in the museum. In a nutshell, there's so much more to learn and discover in the archaeology department than we think. So we entreat everyone to visit